Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with Reference Recording. And today we're talking about the Fauré Requiem. We've been doing a couple requiems. I think we just did the Berlioz Requiem. Well, we might as well, get them all out of the way, right? Well, the reference recording for the Verdi Requiem is an easy call. It's this one. André Cluytens with, Victoria de Los Angeles, soprano, Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau, baritone, and the Orchestra de la Société des Concerts du Conservatoire. Oh, yes, amazing, with Chœur Elisabeth Brasseur. This was recorded in 1959, I believe, something like that. Yes, 1962, of course, because I said 59. 1962, but there was an earlier recording from 1950 that Cluytens also did. It was very much a work that he adored and performed beautifully. This was the one, this was the one. It was released originally. Now it's on Errado, which it never was. It was an EMI recording, EMI HMV, for all of its life until Warner took over EMI and then decided to reassign all of these things to different labels. And for some reason, Errado got all the French stuff. It made no sense to me at all. But anyway, this is a beautiful, wonderful, authentically French recording of one of the most sweetly delightful and humane requiem settings you'll ever hear. It leaves out all the naughty bits. It has mostly the beautiful, tranquil, soulful bits. Now, what happened to this discographically is extremely interesting, because for about 100 million years, really until the 1970s, I would say, this was the version of the Fauré Requiem that everyone heard. The edition that they use. It's the version for large forces. And this performance was the dominant performance. It was the one you got when you wanted the Fauré Requiem. There were many other recordings that started coming out, of course, of the same version, but this was the classic, not least for the soloists, who are amazing, but also for Cluytens and for the French orchestra and all that. It was really, really marvelous. When I was shopping around back in the day, in the early 70s, mid 70s, for my first Fauré Requiem, and I asked for recommendations and I read reviews and all that, this was the baby. This was the one we got. It was the reference recording. However, what happened after this, and it's really sort of emblematic in microcosm when you think about it, as to what happened to the classical music industry more generally. What happened was that scholarship got involved, for good or for ill, and we learned that there were many different versions of the Fauré Requiem. There was the version for chamber forces, the original version that Fauré wrote, that had that slightly different arrangement of movements and smaller performing forces. Then there was another version, and there was it was almost like Du Reflet. Remember the Du Reflet Requiem, which was often coupled with the Fauré Requiem, actually. And because the whole work is only 39 minutes long in this performance, there was a version for every conceivable possibility of performance. So there was a solo organ version of solo. This wasn't quite as crazy as the Du Reflet Requiem, but there was this earlier, smaller version. And everyone wanted to do the earlier, smaller version. So that became almost a standard. People started playing this other version of the Fauré Requiem. So instead of directly competing with this one, what happened is that the Fauré Requiem tree started splintering into different branches. And there were still recordings of the regular one, and then recordings of the newer one, and then independent labels liked the newer ones because it was cheaper. It required fewer people to do. Never disregard the role that money plays in all of this. And publishers liked it because they could publish new versions of the Fauré Requiem, and everybody got into the make your own Fauré Requiem kind of game, just like they started doing with Bruckner symphonies. There was this version and that version and this version and that version, all excuses to re-record standard repertoire. And so we got hundreds of millions of versions of Fauré Requiems, and no consensus is possible anymore. because in order to arrive at a consensus, everybody has to be, first and foremost, talking about the same thing. And while we're all talking about something called Fauré Requiem, now you have to say, well, is it the Tuesday version, the Thursday version, the 1902 version, the 1896 version? It just became a pain in the ass to try to keep track of the Fauré Requiem. And so this one is the last Fauré Requiem about which we can say there was a consensus and there was a genuine reference recording. There are many very beautiful recordings of the Fauré Requiem, don't get me wrong. You can read reviews of lots of them in classicstoday.com, or a whole bunch of them anyway. And this one, my friends, remains the last noticeable, discernible, definable reference version for the Fauré Requiem. And it's beautiful. Again, great soloists, Victoria de Los Angeles, Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau, André Cluytens conducting the Paris Conservatory Orchestra. It doesn't get more idiomatic than that. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.